All right, magic makers. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Something I haven't done ever is I'm going to do a series. And over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to break down stubborn belly fat. There are three main, in my program, there are three reasons why we have belly fat, and here's how we are going to tackle them. And, let's be honest, we all want to get rid of that stubborn belly fat. And this series, excuse me, is going to break down it into three key parts. We're going to talk about your choices. We'll talk about the code, and we'll talk about how do you finally get consistent with that. But today I want to keep it really like workshoppy. And today we're just going to talk about our choices. And we're going to talk about how do we break those choices. And I'm going to break those choices down into four areas: nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress management. So let's dig in. So we're gonna start with nutrition because most people come to me and they think that it's their nutrition. Kim, hand me a diet, hand me a meal plan, what have you, or what diet, what's some magical diet I should follow, or some superfood or some hack. But the big thing that I notice is that most of the women who come to me know how to eat. They're eating pretty cleanly. What I find is that we might need to make a shift, a tweak, like nothing huge, a tweak to what you're already doing. Because, many of the women who come to me, they're either under eating, for someone told them decades ago, don't exceed a certain calorie limit, a 1,200 calorie limit, 1,500 calorie limit, and they're not living above that. That's one. Two, you might have fallen prey to what I did, that old school bodybuilding talk of, you don't want to have more, you want to have 5 meals a day, and, don't go more than 2 to 3 hours without having a meal, and so forth. And I know that for me led me to overeating because I was eating the way I ate, but I was working out in a very different way. And so that is how the weight for me slowly started to creep on, not even getting into the fact that my hormones are going a little bit haywire. Not a little bit. They were having a buck wild, raging party. So when I talk with nutrition, for most people, it's like, how do we start to create a balanced plate for you now, the person who is 40 something years old. And, for that balanced plate, it's nothing really like there's no dramatic wholesale changes. It's like, if you were to look at, the last meal you just ate, maybe you're eating right now, look at it. And if I were to, imagine your plate's a circle, if the plate's a circle, if I were to divide that in half, can half of my plate be filled with a fruit or a vegetable or both? If I were to take that other half and divide it in half, could that other half be divided by the top half be protein and the bottom half be a combination of some type of complex carbohydrate, some grain, if you will, and a fat. So if I were to take that last quadrant and divide it in half, so it's like a quarter would be like grains and a quarter would be some type of healthy fat. And does your plate typically look like that? Because what I typically see is that most people's plates are the opposite, where that half of the plate is that complex carb, maybe a quarter of the plate is that protein, and then the rest of the plate is empty. So how do we start to shift that around? And that's one of the first pieces that I work with my clients on. It's like, let's get the food right, because once we get that food nailed in and dialed into you, then we can start to do the other things. Because it's like, the best way I could describe it, a car. You could have the best car on the planet, but if you put shit gas in that great car, you're going to get shit results. And I'm not talking, oh, we need to eat organic, we need to eat plant-based. I'm not saying, for whatever your budget is, eat the best quality food that you can. And, I'm saying this. Oh, excuse me. I'm saying this because, so many people are like, oh, do I have to eat organic? Do I have to eat plant-based? No, no. All I'm saying is find your food profile. At the end of the day, your nutrition comes down to what foods do you actually like? You know, like, because if you told me to eat, I'm trying to think of what I don't like lamb. So if you said, Kim, your diet includes lamb, I don't like lamb. So I'm not going to get excited about it. And for me, if I'm not excited about my food, I really don't eat. You know, I spent too many years just choking down shit for so long. It also comes down to your psychology, you know, like how do you feel about food? You know, do you feel that food is an experience? You know, and I have, you know, several clients who are like foodies, and you know, that's how they show love, that's how they feel love, that's how they, you know, really live life. It's just by like having great meals and you know, socialize around the meal. And then it's like we need to practice, right? As we are learning new ways to eat, it is practice. And for many of you, I know that coming to me are A plus plus. Like I want to just, you know, us talk about making some changes. And then by the next week, I've nailed it. Right. And it's like you're not nailing anything, you know. I heard today that just really just landed with me really well. Practice makes persistence, right? Practice makes persistence. And that's what I love. Like the more I practice, the more persistent I can become, the more proficient I can become at whatever the heck it is that I'm practicing, including food. You know, we didn't learn these food habits, these exercise habits overnight. It's been something that we've been doing over and over again. And for someone like, including myself, go back to I talked about my 20-week journey. Go back to that episode, and I talked about it took me a good 6 weeks just to like figure out my stuff. You know, I used to be that person who you could throw into the deep end of the ocean and I would just figure it out. Now I need to wade in. I need to like slowly walk my way into the water. So I want you to think about you're trying to as you know think about what does your typical plate look like. Here's are some of the things that you can start enacting today. All right. So first, let's boost our protein and our fiber intake because protein helps us build muscle and fiber helps keep us full, helps us eliminate toxins, helps us manage our cholesterol, our blood sugar. You know, so think about adding in lean meats, beans, lentils, fibrous vegetables, and ditch the refined carbohydrates. They're fine, you know, in moderation, but think more of the complex ones like quinoa, brown rice, sweet potatoes. Your body will thank you for it. You know, in my last round of the Belly Fat Code, I had a client lose 7 pounds in 12 weeks just by adding in more protein. She was very diligent about making sure she was getting 25 to 30 grams of protein with every single meal. And over the course of 12 weeks, she lost 7 pounds. So if you are like, does that work? Yeah, girl, it works. The pro tip here is that you also want to listen to biofeedback. Biofeedback is way more important in my book than anything you see on the scale or any like measurement. Because if I am always feeling like junk, I'm always feeling like trash, no matter if I'm 3 pounds or 300 pounds, I'm still going to feel like trash. So always check in. You know, are you hungry? How's your energy and do you have cravings? Because those things right there will tell me a lot of things. And well, I don't have to look at a food log. I will ask you if you're hungry. And from there, I'll be like, hey, girl, like how much protein you're having, you know, how much time are you going between meals? I'm able to start to uh, dissect what's going on with you to kind of help guide you. Same thing with your energy. You know, a lot of it is like, hey, are you sleeping? You know, maybe you're overtraining. And then cravings. You know, one of the things that most people want to do is they want to bump their activity level. Like, oh, I want to lose the weight, so I got to hit the gym and strap myself to a piece of cardio. And believe it or not, when I do that, if I have not increased my food, I'm going to increase my cravings like a crazy person. And you're going to be like, why am I so hungry all the time? And it could be, oh my goodness, I apologize. It could be that you've increased your energy output more than you've increased your energy input, right? Energy in, calories out. So the more calories out, the more of a deficit I'm creating. And the bigger the deficit, the bigger the craving. Second place in choices is our exercise choices. And so how much cardio do you really need? And there's research out there that it is talking about many of us not needing as much cardio as we think we need. Plenty of us have spent all of that time you know, doing the hits, doing the uh hard cardio, the hours of it. So, how much do you actually really need? Okay, so let's just talk about that. So, for women over 40, you need about 150 minutes of zone 2 cardio. In zone 2, that means your heart rate is about 70% of its heart rate max. And if you're not someone who's wearing a heart rate monitor or an Apple Watch, all that magical stuff, think about I'm out doing cardio and I can easily hold a conversation with a friend, right? I'm not feeling breathless. I'm not feeling like I have to catch my breath. I'm just being able to have a conversation. Now, then from there, whatever that 150 minutes looks like for you, um, is it, 5, 10-minute sessions for you to equal 150? I don't do math, so if that doesn't work out, let me know. Right. So it's like, is it 15-minute sessions? Is it, 2 60-minute sessions and a 20-minute session? What does that look like for you, plus a 30-minute session of high intensity? And when it comes to high intensity, there's a woman by the name of Dr. Stacy Sims, and she talks about doing sprints versus many people will do something hard for 30 minutes. This is more intervals that this Dr. Stacy Sims is talking about. She's talking about more intervals. So it's like you sprint for, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, and then you find where you can recover your breath. Then you sprint again, recover your breath, sprint again, recover your breath. And you do that over 15-20 minutes of work. That's more of what she's talking about when it comes to that type of hit exercise. Then comes strength training. And so many of the women that I've, have worked with, we come from bodybuilding backgrounds. So we were told like Mondays we do this and Tuesdays we do that. But nowadays, one of the things I'm finding and one of the ways I've shifted how I worked out, because I just don't have the time I did in my 20s and 30s, is that we're doing full body exercises and we're aiming to get at least 70 minutes of strength training in. Now, again, that 70 minutes, you can break it up anyway. Am I doing 10 minutes of strength training 7 days a week? Okay, if that's all you have. Am I doing, 2 60-minute, 2 65 minutes and to get to 70? Sorry, 2 35 minutes to get to 70, right? We decide how it's going to look for us. But the big key here that I'm going to just challenge everybody: get moving. All right. Get moving. I can't stress that enough. That you are moving. And one of the biggest things that I know was a surprise for me, and this was a couple of years ago that I have heard this, and I've been, a big fangirl of it ever since, was that non-exercise activity thermogenesis, neat. And one of the things I've found is that, or studies have found, is that many of us think like going hard at the gym is what's giving us the results, right? We've all seen those memes. It's my sweat is my fat crying. No, that's not how it works. Actually, believe it or not, you actually breathe fat loss out, like you breathe it out through your breath versus your sweat. So anyway, um, it's the acts of daily living outside of that gym. Your gym activity accounts for like 10-12% of your total calorie burn of the day, where neat is more like 20 to 30%. So that's why, so many people are, pounding the drum, get those 75, 5,075, 5,000 to 7,500 to hell. If you could do 10,000, rock on with your bad self, steps in. And, I know that even like, again, we could break it down to small things. I know one of the things I have noticed about myself is that I don't have consistent steps throughout the week. I do have some days where I'm in a dearth. Today I'm recording this podcast. I've been sitting at my desk since about 10 o'clock this morning. It started with a phone, started with a phone call. Then I had another podcast interview, and then I'm recording this. Then I was doing work for my Fit Girl Magic group. And I want to say, it's late in the afternoon and I maybe have 4,000 steps. And so after this, I'm forcing myself to walk my booty down the street for at least 15 minutes to get in a walk. So I challenge you. And, nowadays they have those walk pads I've seen. They have those like mini tramps, like so many ways for us to like sneak in these extra steps. And, also I can't stress enough rest days. Back in the day, I was not the rest girl. Like a rest day was like a hot yoga class, a 90-minute hot yoga class. That was rest. Like, girlfriend, that is not rest. So I want you to think about, what does rest mean for you? Because your body needs rest. So making sure we have those rest days, and I'll go, sure, go for a walk on those rest days, but I'm not talking about go for this strenuous, like level 5 hike. I don't even know if they do levels in hiking. That's how outdoorsy your girl is. Outdoorsy for me is the beach. But for those that neat days, it doesn't have to be fancy. Take the stairs instead of taking the elevator. Park the furthest away in the parking lot. Walk your dog a couple more times. Dance in your underwear in your living room. Maybe the shades are open, maybe the shades are closed. Your discretion, right? But the big thing is that it's not about, stepping on the gas with the exercise, because more isn't always better. Your body needs to rest. So we want to mix in our strength training with flexibility and mobility work so that we can really kind of optimize our exercise life. And, the overall balance is key for food and as well as nutrition. Now I'm going to take on sleep, right? Raise your hand if you're getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Okay. So let's talk about it. I get it. If you're in that perimenopausal state, hot flashes, night flashes are just a beast. I get that. And I will have a whole podcast devoted to like what you can do for hot flashes and all that stuff. But for right now, the big thing is, how do the best way I can describe it is like, we need a good bed hygiene. And with that, and I can't stress enough that like your body, like, we're habitual people. Like our body is very habitual. And so, we need to know when it's time to power down our engines. And I know that I'm noticing that, like, in the summertime when it's lighter later, I'm a little out of sync with my circadian rhythm, right? Even though I'm feeling tired, I'm like, but it's still later. And my body's kind of like starting to fight against that. And so I had a client who, she has these light bulbs, like they're like red light bulbs, excuse me. And she had them on a timer, and she would start to have her lights dim about 2 hours before bedtime. So it was kind of like starting to kind of like uh start to get the melatonin starting to like percolate in her body, because the light had changed. And do you have to get that into it? No, not at all. But it was just kind of one of those like things that I bring up because it just popped into my head. But the other thing is like, what is your bedtime ritual? So for me, I call it my wind down. And, my husband knows. It's like, don't mess with my wind down. Because when I don't get my wind down, I toss and turn. Like I literally, if I miss a step in my wind down, I toss and turn. And for me, I sit literally in my closet and I do breath work for like 5 minutes. I wash and brush my face. I scroll through TikTok. I know some people, for blue light bothers them. For me, blue light doesn't bother me. It's just like I scroll through TikTok. For me, it's like watching the evening news. I don't really know. Like I just scroll through it. It's not overstimulating because, I'm watching people dance on TikTok. Or I learned something new about like why North Dakota is the least populated state or something crazy like that. Um, then I read my book. And by the time I get all of that done, it probably takes me about 30 minutes and I'm done. And by the time I probably get to like my 5th or 6th page of my book, my eyes are fluttering and I'm like ready to go. Right. So I want you to think about what can you do to create that good sleep hygiene? Because why you want to prioritize sleep is because the biggest thing here is our brain health. Like it just helps our brain to completely reboot. And I am, I don't know if you've ever read anything by Shonda Rhimes. Like, many of us have watched a multitude of her TV series and shows and so forth. But I don't know if you've ever heard an interview from her or watched I heard an interview for her or read her book, The Year of Yes. She's obsessed with not getting Alzheimer's. So am I. You know, I watched my grandfather get with Alzheimer's. I watched a very good friend's wife with early onset Alzheimer's, and I watched another family member with Alzheimer's. And it's no joke. Like you just don't remember shit. Like the only thing you remember is your name. And I don't want to go down that route. That's just not a path for me. And I will do anything in my in my world to stop that. And so for and I don't want to be like, I don't want to bring this down like, Debbie Downer here. But for me, a lot of the actions that I take right now are prevention, right? I'm not young. I'm not 25 anymore. And I know that, my grandma's 102. So, I'm making it to 102. If OC Barnes can make it to 102, so can I. And so what that means is I need to like do all the shit right now so that when I'm 102, I'm walking on my own. Like that's my like I made it. If I make it to 102, check. If I am not using any type of apparatus to walk on, I've got good balance, I've got good bone support, I've got good muscularity. I'm in the bonus circle. I remember shit, bonus circle. So sleep is so important because one of the things that sleep does is that when I get a full night's sleep, I want you to think about like, have you ever like reset your computer? And sometimes you reset your computer and then like it immediately like comes back up. Boom, no problem. And then sometimes you reset your computer and like sometimes like I have a Mac and so like sometimes that ball just spins and spins and spins and spins and then it goes down. That's how sleep is for us. Like some nights we don't have a lot of systems to fire down. Other nights we have a lot of systems we need to fire down. And by that full 7 to 9 hours of sleep, it allows that all those systems to get like reset, recharged, and ready to go. The other thing with good sleep, it helps us with weight management, right? Because one of the biggest things I see all the time is that people who are like dawn patrol, right? The 5 a.m.ers. I'm like, did you get a good night's sleep? And in order to be a 5 a.m.er, you got to get your booty to bed, your lights out like 8, 9 o'clock at night. But if you're someone who's staying up till 10, 11 o'clock at night and then still wanting to be a member of the 5 a.m. club, you got to reevaluate because I know some of you go to the gym and your battery is probably at like 60%, maybe 50. And you're just, your ego forces you to power through. And so I want you to start to think about, what does that 5 a.m. badge cost you when you're not sleeping the 7 to 9 hours each night? There's another whole host of things, blood sugar, craving support, mental health, just, I know when I'm tired, like my patience is out the freaking window. Like I'm dead. I'm also very snacky when I don't get enough sleep. So really think to yourself, what are ways that you can like power down your engines before you go to bed? What is that hard stop for you? And I always tell people if you're like, oh, I don't know, it's like, you gave your kids a bedtime, give yourself a bedtime. If I'm getting up at 7 o'clock, what's 7 a.m., what time do I need to go to bed to get up and out of here? And finally, we're going to talk about stress. And so I talk about this, and it's not like everything I gave to you. I don't want you to think that there's a pecking order. I want you to think to yourself, what feels the easiest for you to control right now? Right? That's the pecking order. It's this is a self-guided pecking order. It's not like, a numerical list. And stress, even though it's last, this one right here, stress and sleep can take you right out of the game, right? Because as I mentioned, if I have low energy, like how much of a quality workout am I getting, right? Am I really like, getting after it? Or I might be getting it after it in my mind, but am I truly getting after it? Because I don't have the true energy to put forward. The second thing is like when it comes to stress, I remember a client said to me, like, I was like, "Oh, how's your stress level, girl?" She's like, "Oh, it's just how my life is." No, no. Yes, you can have periods of stress. Agreed. 1,000%. Right. You're in the middle of a big project. You got a big event coming up. Maybe, like I mentioned, I have a client, it's his tax season. Heck, maybe you're like my husband who's stressed out about the Celtics, those kind of things. But it's a short run. It's not like you're pressing the stress button, for years and years on end. And I see that. And I'm also going to loop in here like low level anxiety. And anxiety is us like future pacing, right? We're thinking about things in the future that may or may not happen. And we're caught there. And so we're like, just like, oh my God, what if, whatever it is that you're thinking about, I can't think of off the top of my head. What if that happens? And what if this happens? And you're just kind of like at this, like, just kind of like waiting for like the other shoe to drop. Where stress is like, you're just like, you're focused in on what is either in the present happening, but also it's a little bit of a future pace as well, or just the amount of priorities that you put on your shoulders. And so here is where, I one of the first places I had to go, I am a recovering stress ball. Like I was a perfectionist, and that like just perfectionist, workaholic, it just like it just fed into my, stress managed stress load like gasoline on a fire. And so one of the things with stress, and I've done several podcasts about stress, one of the biggest things that I know it worked for me was I had to write down everything I was stressed about. Like what exactly was happening? Why was I stressed out? Then I had to go through the list and say, okay, and break it into these three areas. What could I stop doing? Like literally, like what was not my job? What didn't need to get done? Did I need to vacuum the beach every night? No, I didn't need to vacuum the beach, but you get what I'm saying. What could I delegate? What were things I was doing that I could easily delegate? And then what had to be done by me, right? So it was like, what could I stop doing? What could delegate? And what had to be done by me? And so I want you to like, if you're feeling any type of stress, say the same thing. Now, when it comes to anxiety, I have clients who are dealing with aging parent, right? We talked about Alzheimer's. Some, clients who are dealing with, their family member, their loved one who is going through some form of memory issue. I have clients who they're dealing with some other serious illness, some other addiction in their life, and they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're waiting for that phone call about, whatever it is that your worst fear about your, you know, injured or sick relative. And you're constantly like in that like alert, like waiting for that phone call, waiting for that knock on the door. And that sucks. Absolutely. And one of the things that again, writing, like I remember, I know, and I probably got some eye rolls. I remember when I first started in my business and my first business coach, she was just like, Kim, just write out all of your fears. She goes, because some of them will feel silly when, once you get them out of your head. And some of them will feel like really freaking real. And she's like, the ones that feel silly, you can now just like divorce them. Like now just be like, that's so silly. And then just like, laugh at it. And then the ones that are really more serious, then you can decide like, does it need to be further unpacked? Right now that I've like let it out, does it require more review, further review of this? And I say this because so many of you have this low level, like you're a high functioning anxiety. You have high functioning anxiety, meaning like, if I were to talk to you, I would have no idea like the DEF CON level that is going on in your brain. I look at you, I talk to you, and you're just doing absolutely fabulous. However, in the back of your mind, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like you're about 60% present. And depending on, how serious the situation is, you might even be 50 or 40% present. But the rest of you is just like waiting for, silently listening for that phone call or that knock or what have you. And so I want you to really start to think about, belly fat isn't just because you didn't do enough sit-ups, right? It's because we have to really work on our choices, our nutrition choices, our exercise choices, our sleep choices, and our stress choices. And so this is just the beginning of it. And if when you work with me privately or work with me in the Belly Fat Code program, we talk we work our way through this over the course of 12 weeks. And this isn't this like one and done thing. I get in the weeds with you and we figure out, what is your true uh code. I'm sorry. What are your choices? Like where are you stumbling? Where are you just like, yeah, I got that. This is what I do. And so that we can really help fine tune your belly fat code for you. So next week we are going to be diving into how do you create your own personal code. And trust me, this one was such a game changer for me, breaking up with the all or nothing mindset that I had for, oh God, I don't even want to know. I don't even want to share with you how long it was. It was ridiculous. So make sure you subscribe. And if this type of topic is resonating with you, do me a favor, share this podcast with your friends and let's keep this conversation going. All right, magic makers, until next time, stay fabulous and enjoy the rest of your day.